Duval. Finally, after 4 years of being on the struggle bus, the Jaguars hopped off and were a playoff team last season. And now they enter 2023 with aspirations of being legit AFC contenders. Let's go ahead and discuss. And what's crack-a-lackin'? It's your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know. So go ahead, become a bro and subscribe. Leave this video a thumbs up if you enjoy the content as always. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let's have that nice, beautiful football discourses today. We're talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're going to go over the coaching staff, the scheme, and the roster. But stick with me until the end of the video because I'm going to give you my prediction on the Jaguars in 2023. But without further ado, let's go ahead, get this party started with the coaching staff, as Doug Peterson is in year 2 of his tenure here as the head coach. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't think Peterson was the sexiest hiring for the Jags, but it was the safest. For a team that had one hell of a ride with Urban Meyer, they needed someone to come and bring some culture, bring just some consistency, even if it may not have been the sexiest coaching candidate out there. They needed that. And now we're here heading into 2023, ready for this team to blossom, and Doug Peterson has a lot to do with that. This is all his offense. Press Taylor, obviously the OC there, he has a hand in that as well. But I mean, this whole offense just bleeds like Andy Reid, because if you're unfamiliar with Doug Peterson, prior to his Super Bowl in Philadelphia as the head coach, he was an OC in Kansas City under Andy Reid. And what we see from this offense is a very dynamic, like West Coast offense, essentially, or this pro style spread offense today that incorporates a lot of maybe like man blocking, or like inside zone blocking concepts. Like, this team loves duos, it loves inside zone, split zone, and whatnot. And I'll kind of get to it when we get to the roster, that I kind of hope they kind of maybe expand on that. I think they were like 25th or 28th in outside zone, and I think there's good reason for them to try to incorporate that more in the offense. But as far as the offense, Peterson, Taylor, they're pretty like-minded. Taylor, he worked with Doug Peterson in Philadelphia, and it's kind of wild. Press Taylor was already there when Peterson arrived. Like, Taylor was there for the Chip Kelly years, so kind of wild. But they're pretty like-minded in what they want to do. Probably operate quite a bit out of the shotgun. We're going to see a lot of like Y cross or spear concepts. They want to take advantage of having speedsters like Evan Ingram kind of like re-emerged after years of inconsistency with the Giants. They get Calvin Ridley this season just to add to that speed. Christian Kirk was phenomenal last season. And this offense is gonna be fun, and it seems like Trevor Lawrence, it feels like Trevor Lawrence, especially like after like week 8 or week 9, like for him it was like, all right, you know what, I don't need to go out there and like put the team on my shoulders. They invested me in free agency, talking about when they spent money on guys like Zay Jones and Christian Kirk, Brandon Sheriff. It's like they've invested in this offense. I don't have to always make like the big time throw. And you kind of saw halfway through the season there was a lot less errant passes from Trevor Lawrence. And I mean, if you're gonna be like, oh, he had 4 interceptions in the playoff game against the Chargers, like, how many of them were his fault? Go back and look. Just saying. So I'm excited for the offense, and we'll talk more about it when we get into the actual roster. But the defense, man, the defense was actually exceptionally solid last year. And I'm not gonna lie, man, I feel like when we get to the roster, I feel like I feel like I am underrating the defense. And we'll get to it, but a lot of that is Mike Caldwell, who is essentially just a Todd Bowles disciple. He was with Todd Bowles since 2012. His days in Philly, Arizona, followed him to the Jets, followed him to Tampa Bay before he arrived here and became the DC. So what you're going to see is you're going to get an attacking 3-4 defense that's playing a good amount of man, that just has a very nice exotic blitz package. They always want you guessing where the pressure may or may not be coming from. And to be fair, I don't think he was as blitz happy as Bowles has been over the course of his career. As like, I think Jacksonville, they were like 14th in blitz rate last year. But I mean, if it looks like they might be getting real comfortable with who they have out there, playing in the secondary. So maybe they rev up that number this year. But regardless, like, Caldwell was I thought a really good hiring, and yeah, just good on this team, man. This team is definitely up and coming. I feel like I am a bit underrated them, and if you're not familiar, I don't do this deep dive series based on like a power ranking. Like, I do it based on a draft order, so I go from like first to pick 32 because I do a 2024 NFL mock draft at the end of it. But yeah, I guess without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get to this roster. But first, I'm going to give a shout out to Underdog Fantasy. Thank you so much for sponsoring the video. Underdog Fantasy is currently one of the most premier fantasy betting apps, and they got a best ball tournament with $15 million in cash prizes. So if you sign up at Underdog Fantasy using promo code Broshmo, they will match your first deposit up to $100. Remember, sign up with promo code Broshmo and they'll match that first deposit up to $100. Dudes, we're knee deep in fantasy football draft season. There's not a better place to play fantasy football than Underdog Fantasy. But as always, bet responsibly, my friends. Let's go ahead, get to this offense. And I feel like I'm really underrating them because I really do think this squad maybe becomes a top 5 offense in the league. I'm fairly confident they will take a significant step in that direction with Calvin Ridley now eligible to play. Trevor Lawrence just continuing his progression. Because remember, this guy was one of the most sought out and highly regarded prospects since like Andrew Luck. So now that he is starting to just enter that greatness many thought he could achieve, like, this team only feels like it's gonna get better. Though I do think there's aspects maybe of this team that will hold it back, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But they just marked outside of my top 10 in my projections offensively, so I got him here between 11 to 15. Trevor Lawrence, like I said, he was a lot smarter, more safe with the football during the second half of the season. You can kind of see that turnaround in really, I mean, you could say week 9, but I think it was really week 13 that, like, he just turned it on. And like, the dude's got an arm that can make any throw. Legitimately does. He is special in that regard, and the weapons just got better for him. They really, really did, with Calvin Ridley coming back. I am sure, like, maybe distance makes the heart fonder, but I think we forget how good Calvin Ridley is. And yeah, no surprise, this dude's blowing it up during camp. I can't wait for the season to start. I really can't. They get Calvin Ridley there on the outside. You have Christian Kirk, who is just a very, very good slot receiver. Legitimately, like, tore it up last season. I want to pull up his numbers real quick. As he cracked 1,200 yards, 10 tutties, 8 forced missed tackles. That's nice, but like 75% of the time he was lined up in the slot, and that's fine. Go do you, boo-boo. You be that top 10, that top 5 slot receiver. Well worth the money if you're going to continue to be a threat like that. Zay Jones put in work too. He almost had over 1,000 yards. Remember, I'm including their playoff games as well. So okay, if we were gonna go to the season, because a lot of people don't include like the postseason, but 1,100 yards officially for Kirk, and Zay Jones was just like 180 away from 1,000 yards himself. Evan Ingram again had that bounce back and had like the hands were so much better with Evan Ingram. That's kind of been a theme, right, during his career, that wasn't always the most surest of the surest hands. Like if you like look at his drop rate, like he's had drop rates of 14%, 11%, 8% over the course of his career, but he comes in last year just under 4% on the drop rate. And we kind of know like he has this ability to be this nutty receiving threat at wide receiver. 11 forced missed tackles last year was super good. So they got weapons. And you could even include the backfield, because I freaking love Travis Etienne. He was my top running back coming out. I want to say I had Javonte Williams ahead of Najee, but I'm not positive. But regardless, I had Travis Etienne ahead of both of those guys, because I was like, man, this was a guy who a contact better than you expected for someone with his type of burners. And legitimately, like he the minute he sees daylight, like he could be gone. And he was just very good as a receiver threat. Had over 300 yards, only one forced missed tackle, but again, he's kind of hard to put a hand on in general. One forced missed tackle as a receiver. I mean, if we could go and look at his rushing totals, and he had 64 forced missed tackles, but still, regardless, a very good. So he's got weapons galore. If we were talking about Trevor Lawrence, of course, if we're going to look a little bit more at the depth, particularly at receiver, it's not like it's great. They bring in Parker Washington. He's more of a slot guy who's kind of built like a running back, but he can high point the football. Might not have like the biggest route tree, but someone who can run routes, or at least ran what he was asked to and did it solid. But someone who can really create after the catch, but he was also a bit streaky when it came to eating contact. I imagine like he was a 6th round pick, but I imagine he makes a team. Jamal Agnew is more of a special teamer, so more of a special teamer. Return man. Oh my gosh, why did that escape me? Is what it is. But the question is, okay, who gets wide receiver 6 on this roster? Is Tim Jones? Could be. I'm gonna say, was Tim Jones Boise? That doesn't sound right. Southern Miss. Okay, maybe I'm thinking of a different Tim Jones, because this cat's only been in the league since 2021. Maybe not. I don't know. I was a big fan of Kevin Austin Jr. when he was coming out of Notre Dame. He tested exceptionally well, and to be fair, like it's not like the production was there on tape for him, but you could see at parts and pieces, especially during the end of his tenure there at Notre Dame, that was like, oh, okay, he's got the makings of someone who could end up being like a starter in the NFL. So I'm really hoping he ends up making the squad after being a UDFA. Matter of fact, I don't even really know if he did much of anything last season. Doesn't look like it, so he was probably on the practice squad. Seth Williams, big body vertical guy, probably doesn't make the squad. Elijah Cooks could be interested. Someone who injuries kind of screwed him over near the tail end of his career at Nevada, as he was part of that duo with Romeo Doubs, Elijah Cooks, and then you had Carson Strong there at quarterback, and then Cooks just was unable to stay healthy and ended up transferring to San Jose, where he had a solid season. I mean, is there there's just not much else here. It's like almost like, yeah, this feels like it's Kevin Austin, and then Parker Washington probably fits in here. So Yeah, looking at the tight ends, Luke Farrell, more of this all-around guy, but like good athlete, just wasn't utilized a ton at Ohio State. At least as a receiver, he was. And to be fair, I mean, if you're the tight end at Ohio State, you're probably like maybe the 5th target on the squad. They just have so much talent there at receiver. They did draft Brennan Strange. I thought that was early, real early. I think I had him near like back into 3rd, maybe early 4th is where I had him. But I get it. He's a really good blocker who's got good athleticism to him. So he makes the squad. Am I ballsy enough to say Josh Peterson, that Doug Peterson's son, doesn't make the squad? I am. Is he still undersized? Like, I think he was like 235 coming out of Louisiana Monroe. Hey, still 235. What can I say? Probably doesn't make the squad. So, yeah, I mean, Evan Ingram is the receiving back. Like, Brennan Strange is probably someone, like, if they want to get fullback involved. But, I mean, they got Derek Parrish there, which I'll talk about Derek. Yeah, you know what? I'll talk about Derek Parrish right here, right now. He is just a football player. And you're like, what does that mean? I mean, he is born to play football. You put, like, they list him here a fullback, awesome, but he isn't just a fullback. He's going to be a phenomenal special teamer. He was insane getting after the passer there at Houston. Like, so if you want to like bring him on like the like a dime package, you're like, hey Derek, just get out there and get after it. Like, I'm not saying that he's going to have like 200 snaps on defense, but I mean, it wouldn't shock me if he ends up having like somewhere between like 50 to 75 snaps on defense, or even 100. But he's going to stick on this team just even as a special teamer, but his ability to come in there and be another blocker. So Brennan Strange, I feel like they're just going to use him as a traditional tight end. Looking at the rest of the offense, yeah, let's do this. Okay. Looking at the rest of the offense, let's talk about the offensive line. And I first want to talk about conceptually, this is a team, especially with Travis Etienne, with this guy's ability to, when he sees daylight, just turn on the jets. I would love to see them work that outside zone game. Really, just stretch the field horizontally, stretch the alignment, and just have him just see daylight go. I think he could just get him in chunks. I just want to see him utilize it a little bit more. And I think they have the horses to do it. Like Walker Little, who's going to end up starting this season. I don't know if when Cam Robinson comes back, he ends up the starter. Because to be fair, I think Cam Robinson might be I don't think he's built to be an outside zone guy, but Walker Little can. Like, I know he's tall, but he's got relatively good, really good movement, like solid movement skills, especially Anton Harrison. Anton Harrison can move, and he's going to end up being the starter at right tackle. And like looking at the other guys here, I get it. Luke Fortner, this was a dude that was playing inside zone at Kentucky. To be fair, with Liam Cohen, there we go, when he was the OC at Kentucky, they did incorporate quite a bit of outside zone. I mean, they were a very zone heavy team in general. So like Ben Barch was a guy who tested out pretty well. So it's like they have athletes. So if they want to get these guys moving laterally, they got the horses to do it. I know Brandon Sheriff's a little older and whatnot, but kind of is what it is. You don't need him pulling all the time. So I don't know. That's kind of my take. But talking about the offensive line in general, you get Walker Little. He's coming into year 3 now, I believe. I'm Rob Burgundy. Yes, year 3. Okay, cool. So, and he's primarily kind of been a backup unless injury would happen, and that's where he steps in. And he's really only been a left tackle, which so that probably means he's going to be still playing left tackle, that they're not going to have Anton Harrison jump in that role and move Walker Little over. So we'll kind of get to see what Walker Little can be as a full-time starter. Anton Harris, I don't think he's fine to start opening day. I was actually a big fan of Anton Harris in the whole build-up. Where did I have him exactly on my big board for the 2023 draft? Anton Harrison, he was 23rd overall for me on my big board, and that made him OT4. Yeah, he was OT4 for me because I included Pierce Skronsky as a tackle. So I only had Paris Johnson and Broderick Jones ahead of him. I actually had Darnell Wright behind Anton Harrison. I was a big fan of him. What can I say? Like, the dude's got length. He's got movement skills. I get you can be unsure about his anchor, but he that was something he was working on last year. He knew, he was like, hey man, I need to get stronger, and I can't allow myself to be bodied. And you saw him grow in that aspect. Was it there yet in terms of an NFL perspective? Probably not, but I mean, it takes time to develop your body. This guy's extremely young. So Luke Fortner, I know some people are going to argue he was really good last season. He was like very mediocre, but he's a rookie. He was a rookie starting at center. I expect him to be much better this season. If you're going to argue, he was like, I think his pressure rate was like second worst among centers last season. So like, don't at me. He can get better, and he will get better. I really do expect that. I think he went early for me. Like, I think I had him as late third. He goes early third. Kind of is what it is. It's fine. What was his pressure rate last season? Out of curiosity. 35 pressures, 2 sacks. And that was second among centers. So second most, I should say. Ben Bart, I don't know if he might end up being a guy that, like, he's fine, but another guy who hasn't really started a full season yet, I think, in the NFL. I mean, he came close in 2021, but even then, like, to be fair, he's like slowly improved year in, year out. So yeah, maybe he just continues that trajectory. We'll see. I mean, he's going to be due for a contract after this season. But I mean, if that's like the worst part of your offensive line, which, I mean, you can't really say that. Like Walker Little, we haven't seen a full year from. Anton Harrison is a rookie. Brandon Sheriff, to be fair, is kind of more in the twilight of his career now, because after injuries have kind of screwed him over the last few seasons. Luke Fortner is a second-year player, so it's like you're kind of asking much for this offensive line to, like, oh, they're going to be top 10 next year. They're not. They might barely be top 20. But I think they're trending in the right direction. You got a lot of young players, guys that have like a Ben Barch, who has shown development year after year after year. Walker Little, who, not been like, has seen limited play only because of like injuries to the starters, but has played relatively well when called upon. Has it been perfect? Hell no. But trending in the right direction. Luke Fortner, you expect him to take a leap, especially in this offense. He's kind of ideal for Peterson's offense. And on to Anton Harrison, first round quality tackle. So might not be this year for this offensive line, but I do expect them to continue to grow. Tyler Shantley, looking at the depth here, Tyler Shantley, not great starter, can be a starter here and there, but very good depth. I like Shantley quite a bit. They got nothing outside of that. The depth on this squad, not ideal. It just isn't. Cole Van Lanen, kind of a long shot to make the roster. Initially, was he drafted by Green Bay or was he a UDFA? I can't recall. But he's kind of limited. They have Bobby Evans. It's going to be interesting. I think probably he ends up being a guard. I'm pretty sure Blake Hance saw very minimal playing time last season. You can say the same thing about Coy Cronk. So these are all like, I don't know. It'd be nice if they got a veteran in here. They even have they have Cooper Hodges, who, where did he come from? Appalachian State, right? I believe it was Appalachian State. So you got essentially a rookie, a late day 3 rookie. Yeah, he's someone to develop. I fully expect to see him on the practice squad. Just saying. Where did I have him? Did I keep him at tackle? I think I moved him over to, I moved him over to my offensive interior. I had him at 31. Then, I mean, to be fair, I don't know, man. I think he ends up being, okay, they have him at guard. Okay, yeah. So, okay, that's fair. He did play tackle for Appalachian State. Josh Wells. It's been around for a minute. Very, very, very meh. I guess fine enough. But yeah, the depth, not so great there. Looking at the running back group, it's actually really good. Tank Bigsby was a really good addition. I thought last year he did a good job of not being so dancy. And when he sees daylight going, or even being a little less indecisive, because honestly his ball carrier vision is kind of what one of his biggest concerns, I thought. And there were times where he does look bouncy, but he is shifty, man. He really is shifty for a big back, coming in at 6 what? They have him at 6 foot 213. So wow. I remember him being 220. Is what it is. Regardless, he's a guy that can eat contact, though. They have Jermichael Hasty, who's been a fine committee back, but he's not more than that. I fully expect Ernest Johnson to usurp him. I actually kind of expect Johnson to be running back 2 here. I don't know how much they want to ride Bigsby early. Then again, I mean, with first year contract running backs, you might as well just send it. Get your worth. Get your worth. Now I'm gonna sound like one of those guys that doesn't like signing running backs to big contracts, because I kind of am right now. The system's broken. I'm sorry. They have Snoop Connor. He's kind of a bruiser. I'm not gonna lie to you, probably unnecessary at this point. It's just more the same. You have Ernest Johnson. I think that's fine. So offense, all in all, like I said, they're probably good. The biggest thing I think holding them back is the offensive line. I mean, fortunately enough, this is an offense that can get the ball away in a hurry. So it kind of mitigates your offensive line if you feel like your offensive line won't be able to hold up long. Which, I mean, you're dealing with a lot of young guys here in Walker Little, Ben Barch, Anton Harrison, Luke Fortner. Guys that you're hoping are going to trend in the right direction, but haven't shown that they can be above average guys. I feel like it's safe to say, you could look at all these guys and be like, they're okay. But again, young talent, you hope they develop and they just take it to the next level. But let's go ahead and talk about this defense, because I feel like I'm underrating the defense. I think I mentioned that earlier too, that I feel like I'm down on this defense, and I should be, because I'm a big fan of Todd Bowles. So of course I'm a big fan of Mike Caldwell and how he runs things. I'm big fan of parts of this defense. I love Andre Sisco. I really liked Tyson Campbell coming out. As you can note, I guess let's just talk about the secondary here. Then I'll just tell you who I love as we get to him. But Andre Sisco, he is that ball hawk, right? A guy that can be a bit high risk, high reward, but legitimately can create turnovers. And I mean, last year played over 1,000 snaps. Love to see it. He had 3 interceptions, 5 pass breakups. You like it? And to be fair, like, he didn't really get blown up too much. So you're kind of like, he's a guy that was a really good athlete, and seems like he kind of reined in because at Syracuse, you could tell like this guy had some wildness to him. He was more reactive than proactive in coverage. So, but I loved the potential of him, and I did think he should have fell to the 3rd round when he came out. As you can see, Rashawn Jenkins is a fine box safety. That's my opinion on him. Some people really like him. I think he's fine. A guy that could also kick in the slot, which kind of becomes important here. I'm going to say I really don't know who's going to play the slot here. I'm kind of hoping it's not Trey Herndon. I'm not going to lie. I kind of felt like he was a better outside corner than slot player. It's just my take on it. Like, I mean, if we're going to go back and like look at a little bit of his thought rate. To be fair, he's not been like great his whole career. Like, he's probably more of a guy you want filling depth on your roster, but they're comfortable with him playing inside the slot. But like, going back to like 2019, like I thought he was solid in 2019, playing primarily as an outside receiver. But I don't know. I don't want Trey Herndon playing in the slot. I thought he was a bit of a liability there last year for them in some cases. And I mean, to be fair, like there were a lot of ebbs and flow to him when it came to playing in the slot. Like, there are times where, like, okay, he'd be hot, he'd be solid shutdown. To be fair, like, he's solid enough against the run. I mean, but like, I don't know, too wishy-washy. I'd rather roll the dice maybe on an Antonio Johnson, who basically played the big slot for Texas A&M. Might not be like the most flashy guy, but a guy that just gets stuff done. He's capable of blitzing. He's really good at run support. I was kind of shocked that he fell to like, what was it, the 5th round? 5th round. I was kind of shocked at that. I thought he was a day 2 guy for sure. And I kind of mentioned Rashawn Jenkins, a guy that's capable of playing in the slot as well. But then as the question, okay, then who's going to play in the box? I guess you could make a case for the Antonio Johnson at that point. Andrew Wingard, I feel like is more of someone you want playing like a split safety or single high roll. I mean, Wingard's actually low-key, like, people sleep on this guy. Like, when called upon, he is a very good player. He is a solid player. Let's go with that. Good special teamer, though. Team really likes him. Darius Williams, one of these guys who in the league who has that sub 30-inch arm length, which, if you're unfamiliar with just like typical measurements in the NFL, like typically you want your outside corners to have 30-inch arms or longer. There's very few examples of guys playing on the outside with sub 30-inch arms. Not saying that it doesn't happen. It's just there's few examples of guys that have that and that are good. I mean, you look at like, okay, Dante Jackson, there's Roger McCreary had his ups and downs, but he was a rookie last year. But there's just few examples to point to where it's like, it worked here, and here. Darius Williams, though, is one of those guys, man. Ironically, last season, he started in the slot, wasn't that good. They moved him outside, and then he was just unstoppable. He had 15 pass breakups last season. Absolutely nutty. But let's talk about some of the depth that they have here. Gregory Jr., I don't even think I could tell you much about him. I'm trying to remember him. Oh, that's right. That's right. I only saw this guy at the Senior Bowl. Fun fact, I couldn't get Uchita Baptist tape. So basically what I saw at the Senior Bowl was basically that it was it when coming out. They did draft Christian Braswell. I couldn't tell you much about him. I think he was the Rutgers guy, but I'm not positive. So it's like they got a ton of guys that like there in the slot that I'm like, I don't think you should play those guys. Might as well play Antonio Johnson, who did a very good job at that at Texas A&M. This team likes Daniel Thomas. He might make the roster. That'd be interesting. Latavius Brini, hopped on the squad as a UDFA. That'll be interesting. I feel like the safety room is kind of decided at this point with Jenkins, Cisco, Wingard, and Johnson. So, and then Daniel Thomas also, you can't discount Daniel Thomas swoop in and potentially make this roster. So, I don't know. We'll see. Eric Hallett, I believe that was the Pittsburgh safety, the other Pittsburgh safety. Yeah, he didn't really pop out too much when I was watching, like, who was the other safety there? Was it Brandon Hill? I think it was Brandon Hill. Looking at their depth at corner, Monteric Brown was this corner at Arkansas. A lot of people really liked. I thought he was fine as a late day 3 pick. So Chris Claybrooks, probably don't want to see in the field. Tavon Campbell, someone who is honestly, like, he's seen quite a bit of playing time. Let's go ahead and, because he was with the Chargers, I believe, last year. Was he with the Chargers last year? Okay, so he was with Jacksonville last year. He just was banged up. All right, that makes more sense. But I remember him being with the Chargers in 2021, and like he was fine, but another guy that's just more depth. But he's got good size to him. That's 6'2", 200 pounds. But yeah, no, like you get an injury at corner, then at outside corner, crap can hit the fan real quick. But I do like the starters when it comes to the secondary. Moving to that next level of the defense, be in the linebacker position. You got Foye Oluokun out. Originally, this was the guy that played safety at, I want to say it was Yale, I can't recall. But moved to linebacker when getting in the NFL and was pretty solid for the Falcons. Comes over here last year, led the team in snaps, and he was solid. He was good against the run, real good against the run, and he was solid in pass coverage. Devin Lloyd took his bumps, wasn't exactly great in coverage, but you expect him to fully take that next step. Again, rookie linebacker. Typically, linebacker is a tough position to play in the NFL, and sometimes like it takes these guys a couple of years for them to click. Devin Lloyd, I think it clicks this year for him because he was someone I really liked coming out of Utah there. Someone who just great motor, plays with good physicality. But I think we also forget, like, Chad Muma's on this team. Another guy that I like, who was just a tackling machine out of Wyoming. So I don't know, man. Well, I'm kind of curious. What does Foye's contract look like? Trying to remember what it was. A 3-year, $45 million. He can be cut after this season. Oh, that'd be a lot of dead cap. But Muma could be a guy that, like, someone who like ends up like stepping into being that pairing with Devin Lloyd, and I guess like Jaguars are kind of hoping that they get something like Jermaine Pratt, Logan Wilson type of dynamic there, which I mean has worked for the Bengals, man. Those were two very well drafted linebackers that honestly, especially with Pratt like took like 3 years to click from the league. Wilson a little bit sooner, but I imagine that's what the Jaguars are kind of hoping. If we're gonna look at the remainder of the depth here. They drafted Ventrell Miller. For me, that was a little early. I thought he was all right, but he was an older guy. I don't think he was like fantastic, but I think he's someone who can be just very good, solid depth. And if you need him to like start here and there, he can be eventually that guy. I don't think he's that guy right now, but he's going to be a good special teamer to start day one. I honestly probably an upgrade over Shaquille Quarterman. The U baby, who is kind of a thumper but good athlete in general. So linebacker core is fair. It's fine. It's all right. Looking at the defensive line, though, this team and how they get pressure, how they want to get pressure, I do hope that they let Devin Lloyd get after the quarterback a bit more this year, though. We'll see. Javon Walker, we kind of knew like it'll be a work in progress as a pass rusher, but like he was going to be a very solid like run stuffer, just very good athlete, good play strength as well. And I expect him to take that jump this year. I know a lot of people, he got like a lot of crap for being the first overall pick. Oh, you're jumping at these traits when the production's not there yet, but I don't know. Maybe he ends up having like Rashawn Gary. I think that was a lot of his like draft comps for people was Rashawn Gary. So maybe Rashawn Gary, it clicked for him in year 2. So I don't know. Maybe it clicks for Walker in year 2, even if it doesn't just yet. Like he was very solid last year for a guy that saw like close to 900 snaps. Josh Allen's still doing Josh Allen things. I'm still kind of waiting for him to become an elite pass rusher, but as of right now, like he's fine. He's like that mid-tier of starting pass rusher, I would say, in the league. Like he's a guy that, well, I don't think he's a top 10 edge rusher, but probably somewhere in the top 20 there. Just because of his versatility, his flexibility, and I don't know. Isn't this a contract year for him as well? Oh, we'll see. What is Josh Allen? See now this should be for a different video. Looking at all these contracts. All right, let's see. He is, yes. Yeah, he's got that 5th year option right now. All right. So we'll find out what they do with him in the future. Obviously, things didn't work out with Clavon Chazon. I don't even think he saw much playing time last year. So, yeah, like they've kind of acknowledged that's a bust. Let's just move on. Yazir Abdullah, also actually it's kind of interesting that they bring Yazir Abdullah, if we're going to jump back to the depth here, that they bring him in, who I don't think has the upside of Josh Allen, but is very similar in that regards of how versatile he can be. Someone who could play in coverage, can like drop and play like a soft zone, or someone who will just go and get after it. So very intriguing there. Dewan Smoot starts on the pub, but he's just a solid depth guy. Like people sleep on Smoot. Like if he is a third man in your rotation, good on you. Like people sleep on Smoot. I really like Smoot. They've been developing Jordan Smith for a couple years now at UAB. He was a bit raw. Don't know how much playing time he exactly saw last season, if any. I don't see it on there. Yeah, I don't see him taking any snaps, but kind of is what it is. It's kind of whatever. So I don't know, man. Sometimes these developmental guys just don't end up developing, but it is what it is. Like that's why you take a shot at a guy like that with all that upside in the 4th round. If you remember, he was initially Florida. I think he was involved in the credit card scandal for the credit card fraud thing. Ends up going to UAB. But looking closer at that defensive line, as one thing I'm kind of anticipating, and again, this defense was kind of better down the stretch. Here, let's see it here. Here we go. I'm anticipating this defense to be better against the run. Like you saw a lot of missed tackles in general. I mean, if we're gonna look at missed tackle leaders last year, like a lot of it came from the second level, with your Devin Lloyd or your Foho. Even actually Badukasi wasn't good last year. I mean, there's a case you can argue that Devon Hamilton actually steps up, and I mean, he outsnapped Fatukasi last year. Fatukasi might end up just being a bad sign-in, which is a shame. Real shame. But yeah, it just hasn't been good for him in Jacksonville. So it kind of is what it is. Like, and it's cool if they did get something out of Hamilton, because like Hamilton playing that nose. Fatukasi though, he wasn't a guy that, like, yeah, he can be the space eater, but I don't know. Kind of is what it is. And they got decent depth along the defensive line, like Roy Robertson Harris. To be fair, he's played more of this like 4-eye, 3-tech role, and ends up being a really good sign-in. He's solid enough as a pass rusher for an interior lineman, and very solid run defender. Another guy that's like, I'd like to see him be a better finisher once he gets hands on a guy. But I mean, there's a lot of cases these interior players are all, their missed tackle rate is going to be higher than, or at least it should be typically higher than everyone else on the defense, just because they're getting more shots and it's a little tough. It's not like these are guys making these open field tackles. Like, they're typically being blocked and whatnot. Adam Gaddis is on the roster. Yay. Is what it is. They do draft Tyler Lacey, who is more in the mold. If we're going to switch over here, more in the mold of Roy Robert Harrison. So I imagine they're developing him. Like, to be fair, no one really else sticks out. They did draft Raymond Vohesek. I don't know. Out of North Carolina, I couldn't really tell you much about him. I know some people liked him, but he didn't really pop out for me. And that's why I feel a little bit more reserved, that I feel like this defense creeps more towards average than a team that can be like a top 12 unit. Like, I think they're capable of. It's gonna like require it's gonna require some guys to take that next step. Trevon Walker, Devin Lloyd, Josh Allen included. Can he step into elite? So it's gonna require a little of a something here, but I think they're fine just being a perfectly average unit, and that's where I kind of ended up falling on them. But I as I put here, could end up making this big jump. Like, it wouldn't shock me. Like, all in all, like, I'm pretty high on this Jaguars team. So without further ado, I guess let's go ahead and let's get to my predictions. If you're on didn't know, currently the over under on the Jaguars is 9.5. Not gonna lie to you, I might smash that over, because I feel like in my projection, I'm down on the Jaguars, all these cat teams, dude, I swear. I'm down on the Jaguars with my actual prediction, which, I mean, let's just jump to it. I have them at 10-7. So all in all, I'm kind of down on them. But I mean, I think this team, if they take that jump, they're like maybe a 12-13 win squad. Like, I think 9 wins is the floor for this team. They're gonna win the AFC South. Like, you can be like, Tennessee's gonna be feisty. Don't get me wrong. But these Jaguars are the clear front runners. They're the clear favorites. So I would smash on that. I would be like 9.5. Win total, easy. I'll take it. Give it to me. Unless like some horrible injury happens, I'll take it. I got them beating up on all these losing teams, having them going 5-1 in the division. So I'm very confident in them in their division. But when against playoff teams, yeah, the record is a little less than ideal. Let's go ahead with the game by game. I imagine I have them splitting with Tennessee. But that Kansas City game in week 2, that's gonna be fun. I mean, Kansas City's the Thursday night game, though, in week 1, so they get that mini bye. That's what this over here means, mini bye. But this being in Duval, like, Jags could win that game easy. I say easy. Wow, no, they could win that game, and that game's gonna That game's gonna be a spectacle on the eyes. Easy. Them going to London's basically a home game, so you can make a case they beat Buffalo here. So I'm not betting a shape about that. I do have them losing a couple going into their bye. Them going to New Orleans, them going to Pittsburgh. These are two very feisty teams that I think Saints are going to be in the thick of things in the NFC when it comes to playoffs. Steelers, you can make a case they're going to be fighting hard for that 7th seed. AFC's tough. They get the bye, and it's kind of one of those unfortunate things. Like, I'm pretty high on the Niners, and the Niners are also coming off their bye. Like, Jags, they get it at home, so you can make a case they win that game. I'd be cool with that. Okay, so I do have the Jags splitting with Tennessee, and I think that's fair. I do have them beating the Bengals, beating the Browns. If you're unfamiliar with how I do these projections, I go through multiple schedules with different projections. Like, if they like, okay, what's their high end? Where do I think their low end is? And then I think I go through about like 5 different like variations of a team schedule, and then I kind of settle on the median. So like, I think my median's like, this is a 10-win team, 10 to 11 probably. And I think that's fine. I think that falls right in between where I have them, their ceiling and their floor. 9 wins, 13 wins. So I feel like that's fair. But I mean, this team could take a big jump and end up being like a legit contender for the Chiefs in the AFC. Like, I know a lot of, like, we're talking about like, oh, well, that's been Buffalo and Cincinnati's position last 2 years. Well, knock knock. The Jags are here. The Jags are like, hey, we got an elite quarterback. We got some studs on this roster. We're ready to compete. And I think they showed that last year. They had one hell of a second half of the season. So I think we'll probably see that for a full season this year. It's a well-coached squad with a lot of good young talent. But that's it for the video. Go ahead, do the YouTube thing. But as always, until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.